Hello, everybody. Welcome. You are listening to K.I.S.S Recovery 101. It's Bridge Sky here tonight, and I have a pretty awesome guest with me. I'm going to let him introduce yourself. Do you mind doing that, guest?
No, that's fine.
Okay.
Well, I'm Steve Kind. I'm the author of Inspirational Dissatisfaction. I'm a smart recovery facilitator and an aspiring CPRS.
Nice. Welcome. Okay.
Thank you.
So, I definitely want to talk about your book,
Okay.
which I'll be honest, I haven't read yet.
Shame on you.
I got the Kindle version though, and I have skimmed through it.
Nice.
But it's at work we do a book club once a month, and yours is next. So I did want to cheat and read ahead. In my little club, there's 4 of us. We meet for breakfast.
I was already a fan. Now that I'm part of the book club, I'm a bigger fan.
Yes, more sales.
That's right.
He said. Okay, so why don't we talk? Do you want to just start and talk about what inspired you to write this book?
Ah, good. Inspirational Dissatisfaction, it's kind of a culmination of a couple of things. Most people hear inspirational dissatisfaction, and it seems like they're at odds with each other. It's usually inspirational, and that has some satisfying aspect. Yeah. The dissatisfaction was the motivation both behind the style of recovery that I went for and the desire to change my life itself, because where I was going was not only dissatisfying, it was dangerous, not just for me, but for my family. I did actually lose some friends along the way, the people that I had dealt with out in California. So when I ended up getting 2 DUIs. The light did not come on above my head after the first one. I felt like I had to change because I had to change. My wife was not happy with me. My family was not happy with me. I was real happy with me. I thought I was just fine. So I went through AA. I did several meetings, and I joke about it in the book. I don't really joke about it. I just simply say that I made it to my 30-day pin, made it to my 60-day pin, even made it to my 90-day pin. I just never quite made it to that 6-month pin.
Sure.
I've done that several times in my life. And so that is, it was not working for me. AA is a wonderful organization, and I have had personal friends who absolutely thrive on AA. They had their lives turned around by it. It was just not working for me. So there's another piece of the inspirational dissatisfaction. I was not satisfied with where I was going with my recovery. So I had a very forward-thinking counselor on my last stint. When I got my second DUI within 2 years, and if you've ever been through the legal system, 2 and 2 is not good.
No.
Anyways, I was inspired at that point through my dissatisfaction. I was no longer doing it for other people. Now, there were other people that I was concerned about. Obviously, my wife was one of them. I wanted to stay married to her. That's a big part of it. But I was not satisfied myself with where my life was going. And I didn't know what to do about it. When I went in to do some outpatient treatment, I went down to a clinic in Mankato. And my counselor, I give her credit to this day. Yeah. She turned my life around. She listened to me. She let me voice my concerns. I'm not a religious person, and that was part of the disconnect that I had with AA. And she asked if I had ever heard of Smart Recovery. I hadn't. And I asked her what it was about. She says, I don't know. I just know it's an alternative method. And she says, I would suggest you take a look at it. And I said, well, I'm here to go through treatment, and it's a 12-step program. She says, I don't care. You need to find your path. And if this is something that hasn't worked for you in the past, you maybe need to look at alternatives. She was so forward-thinking that she actually encouraged me not only to go and research it, but she admitted me into the program, and she let me utilize some of those tools rather than going through the 12 steps like I had done before. She knew I knew the 12 steps.
Yeah.
I had read the big books several times. I know about Bill W. and the whole gang. You know, it was not something I was unfamiliar with. But she even allowed me to take it into my groups and speak to the other members about what I'm learning through it. And what I did learn through that piece is that there was a lot of recognition of myself in other people in that group.
Wow, yeah.
And so some other people kind of glommed on to, well, I really liked that. To this day, as a facilitator, we have several members that are doing both AA and Smart Recovery.
Okay.
It's a great enhancement to anything. It's just cognitive behavioral therapy, a little bit of dialectic behavior therapy, rational emotive behavioral therapy, motivational interviewing. They're getting a lot more into the mindfulness stuff now, which is fantastic. Meditation. Living in the present moment, absolutely. So that was where my life really turned around. I was going down a road, no pun intended. The front cover of my book is a road to a pot trimming farm that I did out in California.
That's that.
That's what that picture is.
I refuse to wear my glasses unless I'm at work. Everything's blurry.
But no, I started going down a different road. The Smart Recovery, once I got an idea of what everything was, I started looking for meetings. Now, I was just looking online. I was just looking at the tools. I was checking out YouTube. You're familiar with YouTube, right?
Yes, very much so. Probably have some YouTube listeners now.
So I did as much research as I could, and then I started looking for meetings. Well, there was one in Hutchinson, but that one had gone away. I didn't know that until the day before I was ready to go. I decided to call and make sure they were going to be there.
Good idea.
And they were not there. There was nobody that answered. The closest place was up here in Minneapolis.
Okay.
And so I did make the trek a couple of times. Now, my treatment was outpatient. So during the week, I was going through that. But on Saturdays, I would come up to the one in the cities, the Smart Recovery meeting. And I asked the facilitator, is there anything closer to my home? He says, no, but there could be. What do you mean? He says, well, you can go through the facilitator's training. And he encouraged me to do that. So I did. Once I became a facilitator, I sat in an empty room hoping people would show up. I advertised it in the paper. I tried to get some word of mouth going. There was a lot of resistance because for a long time, AA was the only show in town. So there was...
Change is scary.
Change is scary.
Different.
Absolutely. So it took quite some time. A friend of mine that I had met in treatment helped me to finance getting some marketing out there. And other than myself, many meetings alone, he would join me even though he really wasn't in need. It was just one of these odd circumstances where he didn't need the recovery. He was in there because it was a requirement for something with his marriage and all this stuff.
Okay.
So, but he was a great friend. He ended up sitting with me through a lot of very lonely meetings, other than him being there. So I got to the point where I would just sit back and enjoy some Miles Davis and, or whatever. I mean, you've seen I've got a fairly eclectic musical taste. So I would just sit and listen to tunes and hope people would show up. And it took a while before people did. But once it did, it started to catch on a little bit. And I did notice that about half of the people that were coming in continued to go to AA and Smart Recovery, and they loved the balance. I have members today that were the first members that ever started with me down in Mankato that are still doing both AA and Smart, and they would not walk away from either one. They're both very helpful to their sobriety.
Absolutely.
So I guess in a nutshell, my life going the wrong direction was the first piece of the Inspirational Dissatisfaction. My recovery not sticking for me was the other part of the inspirational dissatisfaction. So, short story long, that's where this book came from.
Okay. And I will say that I definitely connect with that, So I just got 2 years.
Congratulations. Happy birthday.
Thank you. And that was because I made the choice myself. But it took 17 years before that of trying to do it my own way. But I think one of the big things for me with AA is still a key piece to NA and AA. They're like my foundation. But I think where I was struggling is I had a lot of like co-occurring things going on.
Sure.
And because of my childhood and quote unquote religion, my notion of that whole thing really messed with me. So any idea, so like even the concept that it's a spiritual program, I think it said in a documentary, the God word in the AA book is 458 times, something like that.
I believe that sounds about right.
But it was written in 1938, and that's how that life was then. So it took things, it took a long time for me to try to make that book make sense and connect with,
Sure.
And I definitely wasn't there, and I found that I needed another path for sure, and still today. And I love exploring other paths. And I've done a couple SMART meetings, and I did DBT. So a lot of that stuff in there, because DBT was that second path that I needed that really got things in line for me.
Okay.
Being able to control my thoughts, emotions, and actions. Actually learning skills. I still have my binder. There's like a ton of skills. I'll never learn them all. But I have my favorites. And there's a little yellow section when it's really bad that I can open up. But it's like, I like it's an inside job thing.
Sure.
And really thinking about what you're thinking. And so, definitely, so in your book, can I ask you a question about your book?
No. Yes, of course you can.
So is there anything in there that you would say is like, it's a page turner chapter, like you can't not turn the page?
My favorite pages in this book are pages 1 through 406.
Okay. I especially like the last sentence, by the way.
Oh, the last sentence on the last page? Find your path?
Find your path.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Well, there are quite a few things to kind of pick from. Mm-hmm. As far as, I guess, the danger end of things. Well, let's start with lighthearted.
Okay.
If you don't mind, I'm going to read just one
That'd be great.
Quick little piece out of here.
Please do.
Now, the whole book starts with me writing a letter to my brother, my oldest brother, Arn. Okay. And the reason I'm writing it is because I was getting ready to go into the coaching academy to get my CPRS certification. And somebody that had already been through it said, do me a favor, write a letter to somebody that you trust and ask them or tell them why you are doing this, why you are going through the academy and what you hope to get out of it.
Interesting.
And so I sat down and literally I had no clue what I was going to write. And I couldn't get myself to actually start the cursor rolling down the page.
Sure.
Eventually it just started going. I remember my daughter, Violet, her words to me years ago were, just do a dirty copy. Just a quick copy, and then you can always go back.
Draft.
A draft, exactly. So I did that. And I got done with that letter, and I didn't know if I should press send or if I should send it at all. I just didn't know. And once I actually did, I got a surprise phone call from my brother. And he said, you write very well. You should consider writing a book.
Oh.
I said, well, my daughter had already encouraged me to do that before, but I had never thought about writing about myself. I was thinking fiction, but that kind of spurned everything to go. But just the last paragraph on the first page. When did the fun of my drug use begin to change from mostly fun to seriously dangerous? That would be a good starting point. I racked my brain for the answer. I didn't want to write a book that was all doom and gloom. Drinking and doing drugs does not start with horrific consequences. That comes later. Not for everyone, but certainly for me. When most people first decide to try any mood-altering substance, the goal is to have fun. I enjoyed many days of inebriation, and the consequences were pretty minimal. So when did it change? At what point did my life go from life with a side order of drugs to drugs with a side order of life? It hit me like a lightning bolt. What event put my life on this path? Meeting Carl. When I say going to the light side of it, it is me and a couple of my pot connoisseur friends meeting the gentleman, I'm using the nicest term I can think of, who really conned me into going out and trimming marijuana on his farm out in California.
Okay.
And that's kind of where this whole adventure begins. I start by trimming. I eventually make some connections out there, and I start running the pot back to Mankato. Turning it into candy, doing all kinds of stuff I really shouldn't have been doing. But, so I guess when you talk about kind of the page turners,
Yeah.
the actual time that I was out in California, a good share of the book talks about the people that I met, the environment out there, because we were out in the middle of nowhere.
Okay.
The blanket of stars at night, because there wasn't a city light for 30 miles. So, I mean, it was gorgeous out there. The bats, the screech owls, everything that's out there. Scorpions waking me up in the morning on my tent.
Oh, no.
Yeah. It was.
So I like Minnesota.
Now we know why we're here.
Nice. Yes, no big bugs and snakes. Yikes.
So yeah, as far as page turner, that's kind of a page turning area. A lot of it is humorous, but then when I start doing the trips back and forth, then the danger kind of kicks in. I had a biker gang that tried to force me to bring methamphetamine back to Mankato. I didn't want anything to do with that trade, but when I said no, it became kind of a life or death situation. I was able to resolve it and continue with doing my pothead chores, going back and forth. But then the book kind of evolves into where my drinking starts picking up. I was out trimming pot and doing this back and forth thing. That wasn't my DOC. That was not my drug of choice. That was not where I got in trouble. Where I got in trouble is when I started putting the liquor down my throat to handle the stress of what I was doing.
Sure.
And probably the hardest chapter for me to write, again, page turner, hopefully.
I was just going to ask you, what was the hardest chapter to write?
The hardest chapter to write was the one where I realized that I was putting my oldest daughter in serious jeopardy. And I was ashamed. I finally realized, wait a minute, what am I doing? I'm putting my daughter in danger. And I rewrote that chapter at least 5 times.
Really?
I could not. I cried through that chapter. When I read it, I thought, who the hell is this guy?
Yeah.
Oh, pardon the French, but...
it's an adult show. Because I hear a lot. Minimally.
Oh, maybe I should punch it up. So, yeah, I didn't recognize myself. I was always proud of being a father. And I had to be honest with myself. I was not only not being a good father, I was being a bad father. I was not taking her really anything into consideration. It was all about what I was doing, and I put her in the way. So that one was the most difficult one to write. I've had a lot of comments from readers that it was the most difficult for them to read.
Sure.
So, getting my second DUI and having a law officer lie and say that I tried to run him down, all of it disproved in court by his own dashboard camera.
Oh, thank goodness.
But when I was arrested, I got my head split open because, of course, that's what they told him, or they said had happened. So, more page turning.
Keep going. That's the first alarm. We're going to interact, listeners. Finish, please.
No, the court fun at that point. fun. Was not good,
fun.
but it was very interesting. And then the challenges that I had once I had decided to get sober, and it talks about me going through the treatment and getting my facilitator's license and sitting, listening to Miles by myself and trying to get this thing going. Probably the hardest thing that I had to deal with sober, the biggest hurdle I had to overcome was the death of my mother. And it hit me like a ton of bricks. And I used to have a real easy solution to that.
Temporary.
Yes,
solution.
temporary solution, but at least I could get myself to the other side of it poorly. But
Yes.
I didn't have that crutch anymore. And so getting past that became a very big issue for me.
Sure. And do you think SMART recovery was a big piece in that and helping you process that? Because what I tell my girls that I work with is you have to feel those feelings. They're icky. They're not pleasant. But if you don't process them, they're going to stay inside, right?
They'll
fester and become resentments and all kinds of things, depression. So it's like feel those icky feelings for a shorter time.
Yeah.
Rather than try to bury them for, whatever amount of time. That's going to be a longer process and have a lot of really not so pleasant consequences. So
one of my favorite things that I learned through SMART was getting comfortable with being uncomfortable.
yes.
And that, to me, is a big part of SMART recovery.
Absolutely.
Is you are going to have some big bowls of garbage you're going to have to eat, but that's okay.
Regularly.
Because, yes, you're not going to, nobody gave you a get out of withdrawals free or get out of consequences free card. You're not going to get it.
Yeah.
You have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable and get to the other side of it and deal with your issues along the way.
Absolutely. And I find that's where I've grown the most.
Absolutely.
Is putting myself in those. I've come through a lot lately. But it's a draw. It's like a challenge now.
Yeah.
I'm able to be like, okay, why do I feel so nervous about this? This is silly. Like my safety's not a concern. So immediately, if someone asks me to do something that right away I feel uncomfortable with, I just say yes.
Like a podcast on Sunday night.
How soon can I get it done? I don't want too much time or I'm going to overthink it. Okay, so this is the part of the show where we interact with our listeners. We do have a couple comments or questions. Looks like Tom says, how old were you at the time you attended meetings for 90 days, and how many meetings were you attending per week? Did you ever get a sponsor and work the 12 steps, or did you just do the 90 days of meetings and chips?
Well, I went through treatment the first time back in 1983.
Okay.
So it's been a long chore, and it was inpatient treatment. And yes, I was steepied in the 12 steps. I read through the entire big book. It was the required curriculum. They made sure you read every page of the book. When I got out, I did find a sponsor, and I made it probably about 4.5, 5 months that time. My second time through treatment, it was much the same. My third time through treatment, it was, I didn't put my heart in it. I was actually using while I was going to treatment, because it was an outpatient treatment and I had no intent on quitting. But again, back to the courts made me do it.
Right.
So I had no real stake in the game. I had no want to get sober. As a matter of fact, I resented that I was there. But every time that I have tried earnestly to get sober, I did it the way I was supposed to as far as I knew.
Yeah.
But I only knew one way. Now, had SMART been available back then, it may have been a good marriage for me. Because I talk about it in the book. When I went to treatment the first couple of times, I was dyed-in-the-wool, a Christian through and through. I say in the book, I have tried it with faith and without. And that's the truth. And the thing that SMART gives me that. The acronym is Self-Management and Recovery Training.
I was going to ask you, okay, can you say that again slowly? What's the acronym?
Self-Management and Recovery Training. So it's all about working on yourself. If you have faith, it's great to have this as an adjunct to that faith.
Yes.
And I think it may have helped me in the past. I don't know. I mean, I can't go back and turn back the hands of time. But I know when I had lost my faith, I also lost the zeal for giving things up to something other than myself. And so that's kind of where everything shifted for me.
Yes.
So, I mean, I can't reiterate this enough. I love AA. I think that I probably have seen more success with AA than anything in my life, but that's because it's been here forever. So I've seen a lot of examples of that. Where AA kind of gets a black eye is it's been the only place that a court could force you to go before.
Yeah.
So it's hard when people are resistant to actually get sober.
Yeah.
So I want your listeners to understand, I am not anti-AA by any stretch of the imagination. And there have been many that have come to my groups that they're fresh into their sobriety. They didn't know where to turn. They thought they'd give this a shot. And I've guided them to AA because it seemed like a good fit. Whatever your path is, that is exactly where you need to be.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it can be a while to find. It's like, that's why I like to try different meetings, all different meetings.
Yeah.
Because, it's like, I like to pick apart different, I like this about this path. I like this about this path. But I don't know, I'm a complicated person. I don't like everything about one path. You know?
Right.
It doesn't, if something doesn't like feel right or sit right, I'm like, okay, well, I'll just put that over here. I still like you guys, but I'm not going to, like, completely say that I can, understand or follow this because it just doesn't sit right with me.
Sure.
And a lot of it is how people have perceived it, because I've found that there's different ways. And now how I, have perceived things is what I share. I think it helps modernize and female-otize. I know that's not a word.
Nice.
I just made that up. A lot of the readings and stuff, so it helps. But I also like to I love that Smart Recovery for me. It just makes me think of like self-reflection.
Sure.
And finding it in yourself. And it's empowering, I feel like, once you really practice and you really get the hang of like really looking inside yourself.
Yeah.
Oh, and that might be a good time. So let me read some more comments and then we'll do that clip.
All right,
The
sounds
fancy
good.
clip that I think it all ties in perfectly. Okay. Oh, Mahana's on.
Ah, Mohana.
Mahana, you know him.
Oh, yeah.
He says, being a part of your recovery can be a life-changing experience. Yes.
Absolutely.
And then, an anonymous Facebook user said, what's your thought about hitting bottom? Thanks, Doug.
Oh, well, I always figure you've got another layer you can always go down. I mean, as long as you're still on this side of the turf, there's still a level you could hit.
Oh, yeah.
But I don't think that you have to hit rock bottom. I think that when you turn yourself around, you have hit the rock bottom you're going to let yourself get to.
Yeah.
But I think there's always a way to find a level below that, unfortunately.
I agree.
But yeah, my rock bottom, I described it. My rock bottom was realizing I'd failed my daughter.
Yes.
And I can't imagine a worse thing except I didn't stop using. My rock bottom was almost losing my wife. And I knew I couldn't go on if I had lost Sue. She was everything to me. She is everything to me. She's sitting here in the room.
She's sitting here with us.
So I guess if she would have left me, that would certainly have been the rock bottom. But even just the idea that she could leave me, that was as low as I could get myself.
Yes, and I'll say that. Okay, Sally is my tech assistant. Sally, we're gonna get the speaker ready for the clip. But I was gonna say too, like my thoughts on like the rock bottom. I feel like rock bottom in my mind is 6 feet under, because I would hit the quote unquote rock bottoms. No, there's trapdoors to those rock bottoms. You could always get much lower. So I started like kind of trying to list out my quote unquote rock bottoms, where most people might stop and like figure some stuff out and like not want to keep. No, I lost
passed
count
those.
and I was like, well, is this or this? It's impossible. Just accepted it and moved on. Okay, so this clip is Les Brown. It's recent, actually. It's a wonderful. I found it inspiring. I don't want to ramble on about it too much. I'm going to let it speak for itself, literally. But if you wanted to look it up, it's on YouTube, and the channel's Motivation Madness. And this is Les Brown. I'm just going to play the first 2 minutes, but it's like a whole compilation of things. I'll post the clip actually in YouTube of where I got it from because it's like 3 hours. So I did not make it through all of the motivational stuff, but just the first 2 minutes with Les Brown caught me. So here we go. We're going to go ahead, give this a go. Hopefully it's connected.
The easiest thing I've done was to get out from under the labels and to live the life that I live. The most difficult thing I've ever done was to believe that I can do it. The difference is that when you don't know what's impacting you, and it's something that's holding you down and you're not aware of it. There are things that when you, in my situation, when you live in a dominant culture that is designed to destroy your sense of self and your belief in yourself, and you have to learn ways in which you can begin to connect with this power that you have within yourself to handle where you are. The key is to be constantly in a perpetual process of discovering the truth of who you are and fighting constantly to look for ways in which you can escape the inner conversation. Between ages 0 and 5, we determine what's available to us and what's not available to us. And so that was a defining moment. I knew there are certain things I could not do, certain places I could not go. They used to have signs on Miami Beach that said, Jews, dogs, and coloreds not allowed. And so now you have to operate within the constraints of the dominant society and the things that they've created for you. And it's a challenge to see yourself beyond that and to work to get outside of that even after those laws have changed, because that has become so much a part of you, you unconsciously operate within the parameters of what has been put in place. Like you're driving on the expressway, the 405, and you'll get off on an exit that you weren't going in that direction, but you unconsciously did it because you've done it so many times that many people, because they're not making a conscious, deliberate, determined effort to think outside of what life has thrown at them, they end up doing the same thing over and over and over again. Einstein said that thinking that has brought me this far has created some problems that this thinking can't solve. And so through relationships, through reading, through studies, through goals and dreams beyond your comfort zone, it allows you to begin to live out of your imagination as opposed to out of your history. Disney said, the imagination is a preview of what's to come.
Okay.
That's a great ender.
Isn't it a great
Imagination is a preview of what's to come. That's awesome.
I timed that. That's a great way to end a clip. So 2 key things that I'll say that I pulled from this clip. I have a couple other notes, but I love when he said finding the truth of who you really are. Because for 38 years of my life, I had no idea who I really was. Mm-hmm. I never allowed myself, that opportunity, because I was told I was a mistake since I was born. And so I was scared to even figure that out, because I'd always thought that I'm not a good person, No. My own worst enemy. And the other piece that I definitely I like from that clip is, and I do this, I really try anyway, is to start my day, or just to live my days with intention.
Conscious.
Have intention. Yes, consciously. So, is there anything that you would point out from what you just heard? Sorry, I just kind of sprung it on you.
No, that's all right. The thing that I really liked about it is he talks about your past becoming your future
Yeah.
because you do things unconsciously that you have no idea, but you just keep doing them repetitively. I know I'm not the only person who's turned into a liquor store without even thinking about it. Or, I mean, it doesn't even have to be related to sobriety. There are just pathways. Your neural pathways tell you where to go half the time without you ever making that decision. That's what is one of the biggest struggles, is to kind of change those neural pathways and to start creating a new future rather than relying on what you've learned in the past to guide you forward.
Yes.
Yeah.
And like, spirituality is so important, but I needed the science facts, okay?
There you
I remember
go.
going into a meeting, I'm like, I love all this stuff, but I need real evidence answers of why I'm so effed up, okay? Because this is not, I feel like this is unanswered yet. So, but one of the treatments I went to is that, I got to see brain scans, and the
Sure.
new evidence, well, it's not that new, but, it's so hopeful, and it shows that we can create these new, paths in our brain, right? And so if you make that intention and that conscious choice to make different choices that you're comfortable with, or that you're always just going back to, your patterns of thinking, you can do it. And I remember after a year of just, after I made this choice myself, feeling like a totally different person. And not even recognizing myself looking in the mirror. It kind of sounds weird, but I know where I sit today, even just looking at old pictures or running into people that knew me before is unrecognizable, because it's like I literally feel like something's changed in my brain, that I don't even go into those dark places anymore, or I can recognize, or I've got that awareness piece.
Sure.
If those old thoughts start to creep back in, and then right away I'm like, why?
You get to recognize them.
Yes.
Yes.
So, and that's what I like about the Smart Recovery, is the scientific part of it and the brain part of it.
I've got to give a quick shout out of brilliance to the other facilitator in Mankato.
Okay.
Doug, this morning we have an in-person Sunday meeting. Most of ours are Zoom, but on Sunday mornings we have an in-person meeting.
Oh, cool.
And he actually brought up, it was not part of the discussion, but he brought up walking in a subconscious manner. Cool. So literally he prepared me for this interview without realizing he was preparing me for this interview. So a shout out to Doug. Thank you, Doug.
Thanks, Doug. Okay, yes. And actually that's kind of when I have time, I really have been getting into your brain and your subconscious,
My
and
brain?
unconscious, all of our brains. My brain. Yes, this is big as I think. But just being able to, there's really cool stuff out there that is way outside the box. I'm all about being outside the box.
Sure.
I've been circles my whole life, but I like the fact that it really is. It's really, again, thinking about my thoughts. Because I'll catch myself, literally, especially if it's negative. Okay, why do I want to go there? But like you said in that clip, a lot of it's based on how we developed, in life. And we just know these parameters, right? And we don't know anything else. And so it's coming outside of that comfort zone. I always say this too, is like, a lot of people, normies around me, would be like, why do you keep doing that? I don't understand why you keep going back to that and doing that. Because even though it's painful and miserable and awful, it's comfortable. That's what I'm used to. I can't, So that's why I love just being in the recovery community.
Oh, absolutely.
It's a lot less having to feel like I have to explain myself.
You get to know people like Muhammad.
And Muhammad. We're like one and the same, just full of energy. Sometimes I get feedback I'm a little too much for people. So but I have my off days. Especially last week was definitely it was where I got to step up on my skills.
There you go.
So when you go to a Smart Recovery meeting, you want to
Yep.
just give a basic outline of how you facilitate those?
Sure. Just a little
can
bit
someone
about
expect?
SMART. I already said kind of what it's based in. It's got a 4-point program, and the 4 points are, now I'm going to tax myself. I told you I didn't get any sleep last night,
yes.
so
I'll give you grace.
building and maintaining motivation is one of the steps. And the nice thing about these, I shouldn't say steps, they're points. They don't have to be taken in any certain way.
Okay.
Another point is managing thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. Another one is dealing with urges. And then the last one, which is my hands down favorite one, is living a balanced life.
Oh, I love that.
There's a tool that Smart Recovery does that's called the Lifestyle Balance Pie.
Ooh.
And what you do is you take your values, the things that are most important to you, whether they are abstract or whether they are, like my wife always makes the cut. So
That's a really good thing.
well, she's in the room. What am I going to say? Yeah, no, she's going to punch me. But you divide, you put these on the outside of a circle, and you divide the circle into pieces of pie with each one of these things that are important to you at the end of that pie. And then you rank where you're at currently between 1 and 10, and you put a dot on the line in between there. Now, the goal is to have a perfect circle.
Okay.
I've been sober now 3.5 years. I have yet to have a perfect circle. There's always something out of whack. But I know what to concentrate on, and it's in black and white. It's like, okay, I just said this to myself. I'm missing this piece.
Yeah.
So though it's maybe not down to the center, it's not balancing with the rest. So things like that. But the actual meeting itself, it starts with an introduction so people feel comfortable with how the meeting works. It starts with a check-in, and that's just when you get a chance to tell people why you're there, what's happened with you in the last week. It's usually about 1 minute to 2 minutes. If it's a really big group, you actually get timed. But it's rarely that big of a group. So, you know, if there's an issue as you're going through your check-in that needs to be addressed, we stop it right there and we start talking about the issue. But if it's no major issues pop up right away and people are just checking in with where they've been, then we go through the group. Everybody gets a chance to speak. There is crosstalk in Smart Recovery, so people may stop you in the middle of what you're saying and say, "Now wait a minute, explain that to me," or "Do you know what caused that?" So it's a lot of interaction.
And anyone can just do that?
Anybody can do it.
Oh, that might take some getting
It does take a little getting used to. Then we go into, now we have 3 different styles of meetings in Mankato.
Okay.
Our Tuesday night meetings are all based on Smart Recovery tools like the lifestyle balance, anything like that. Cost-benefit analysis. It sounds very basic, but a cost-benefit analysis in black and white is the thing that I first did in Smart, and I went, this makes sense to me. A light came on over my head. So Tuesday nights are that way. Thursday nights are kind of a group bonding thing, and it's just based on a conversational topic that's on a list that Smart Recovery provides. It's related usually to sobriety in one form or another, but it's just a conversation starter.
Cool.
So instead of doing a tool, you're having a conversation with the group. This is how this question works with me or didn't work with me, or you just answer the question, and nobody whether you're doing your check-in or you're doing this conversation piece, nobody's required to speak. If we call on you during the check-in, you can say pass or wave your hand, and so nobody has to feel uncomfortable. Yes, you can just come and listen.
Okay.
And then our Saturday groups, Doug, the man who helped me this morning, didn't even know it. At the beginning of each quarter, we go through the first 8 major tools that Smart Recovery provides.
Okay.
And he explains all of them. So somebody who's very new to Smart Recovery, that's a very good one to start with. Okay. Now, any one of them works well for somebody brand new to recovery, but it just gives a good basis. We've had a lot of people start mid-quarter and then just circle around at the end of the quarter and start going to those meetings just to get those specific tools. After we get done with either the conversation or the lesson, it's time for a checkout. Okay. And that's when you get to tell what was most meaningful to you in the meeting. So again, it's 1 minute or 2 minutes, and then the meeting's over.
That sounds fantastic.
Yeah.
And they're in person and virtual?
We have one in person at the fill-in station in Mankato at 9 o'clock on Sunday mornings.
Okay.
And then we have 3 virtual meetings on Zoom. We have one on Tuesday at 6:30, one on Thursday at 6:30, and one on Saturday mornings that Doug facilitates at 9.
Okay, so how can people get connected with that?
You can reach out to me. If you go to smartrecovery.org, you can search by your zip code.
Okay.
If you want to, you don't have to be from Mankato in order to attend our meeting. Just type in Mankato, Minnesota, and that'll bring you to ours.
What's your zip code?
56001.
Okay.
And it'll show you a variety of meetings that are around. It's growing rapidly since I first started in. Like I said, the closest thing I had was Minneapolis.
Yeah.
Well, now there's 5 or 6 meetings that I could go there. I believe there's one in Wells. There's, I think, one in New Ulm. I mean, they're starting to pop up all over, which is fantastic. Yes, yes. And we now have 3 facilitators in Mankato. So there's me, there's Doug, and then Russell. He fills in now and then. So
You alternate.
it is growing, which is wonderful.
That's great.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you heard it. The second alarm. I hate to inform you that it's a hot seat alarm.
Aw.
Are you ready to see it? Okay.
I told you I didn't get any sleep last night,
Okay.
so I might just applaud the question.
Okay, so if this is your first time listening, this segment is called The Hot Seat. And I'm going to ask my guest here 3 hot and heavy questions. And he was not able to see them beforehand, so
Dun, dun,
we're
dun,
talking
dun.
truth time. Here we go. And you don't have to rush. Like, you can take a pause and think about it. For a minute. I might take the opportunity to ramble just so there's that dead air, but no pressure. Okay, question number 1. What do you struggle with the most, present day, would you say? It's one of the biggest things you struggle with.
Okay, you're going to have to give me just a second here. The most. That's a definite. Honestly, finding the right job. I know that's not exactly on
Like a
topic,
job that
but
you'd like or that?
I got my CPRS, my Certified Peer Recovery Specialist certification almost a year ago, and I've been searching for something either remote or close enough to my home that I don't have to drive an hour and a half to the cities in order to do this, and I can't seem to find the right job.
Okay.
So if you got a job out there.
Well, just recently attended this training, and one of the new concepts they're really trying to bring forth is tele-recovery.
Yes, and I would love to be a piece of that. Absolutely.
Because, they got the telehealth, and you can, do all those other appointments on there. Why can't you do your recovery?
I'm a Zoom guy.
Yes, a lot of people are now.
Yeah.
So, okay. That wasn't so bad, right?
Yeah, that was okay. They get worse.
They get worse as we go on.
I knew it.
Okay, not really. I'm just... question number 2. What's something you think about that you think no one else thinks about?
Now you're just trying to get me in trouble.
Okay, so I wrote a little example because it did get me. So I'm like, now I have to ask this because I don't know. Okay, so for what I came up with is like I daydream. Okay, so if I'm in a boring meeting or I don't know, just sitting. I recently went to a place and I had to sit there and no phone or anything. It'd be disrespectful. But I literally will start thinking about silly, they're not silly, just scenarios like that would be great. So one thing that I think about is how cool it would be to be as a person that can read minds or
invisibility,
levitate, a superhero powers, but nobody knows about. So I'll daydream, fantasize, it'd be so cool if I could go walk through that wall right now, be invisible or whatever, getting really nerdy, but it's not like that extreme. They're more somewhat realistic. But what's something that you just kind of think about maybe randomly and it's not quote unquote a usual normal way of thinking?
Wow, that is a big, weird, interesting question that I don't think anybody else does. I think pretty much most of my thoughts nobody else has.
Okay.
Do you
meet people
they're mine.
and you immediately have thoughts, or do you go places and you have different thoughts or?
Well, I tell you, I wander in the religious aspect of things. I'm always looking.
I love researching religions.
I am a searcher. I have had phases of my life. I've gone down the Christian road. I've gone down the Buddhist road.
Yes, that's where I'm at.
Oh, absolutely.
There's
Zen
so
up.
much in there that I connect with, like reincarnation, birth, enlightenment.
Absolutely. It's funny you say atheist or agnostic. People think that you don't believe anything, and you don't.
Yeah.
You don't. You're anti.
Yes,
everything.
I was just thinking that.
I am absolutely the opposite of that. Agnostic just means I don't know.
Yes.
That's it.
Yeah.
I'm just saying I don't know. Atheist means I don't believe in one specific thing.
Right.
It doesn't mean that I don't believe there's something out there.
Right.
So that's where my mind kind of wanders a lot. I don't know if I'm really answering the question.
I think
but
I like where you're going with this.
That's kind of something I do quite often. I also daydream about being Stephen King.
Yeah.
I mean,
Right?
I have not had a better time in my life than promoting this book and being a part of writing this, being a part of it. I actually wrote it.
You wrote it.
I kind of can't believe I did.
All the credits.
And I would love to get some of those Stephen King royalty checks.
There you go. That continue. You can pretty much write anything and they'll read it.
Absolutely.
That's great. Okay, let's get into question number 3. We already had our last alarm, which means we got the beams coming up, listeners. The live Facebook beams. It's good fun, at least for me. Okay, last question. Question number 3. What's the angriest you've ever been, and what happened?
Oh, wow. Ever?
The general question, so whatever pops in your head.
Well, the first thing that popped in my head was the man who grabbed my wife inappropriately in a bar when we were first dating.
Oh my goodness!
There's the face.
She's like, oh, shaking her head.
He
Here we
got
go.
put against the wall that day.
Tell a little bit of the story.
She didn't back me up. She said somebody had grabbed her, and when I saw a hand going that direction, I grabbed the guy and threw him up against the wall. And then she said, I don't know if it was him, so I kind of had to back down on it.
It's called a reaction. There was no time to respond. You just reacted.
But I would say also, in the book, somebody who I considered a brother, I called him a brother many times. I still have the dream catcher that he gave me because he wanted me to be protected. He's the one who introduced me to the man who tried to get me to bring meth back to Minnesota. And I lost him as a brother before he got lost in the meth trade and he didn't survive it. But I had broken off everything with him before that ever happened because of the anger of the things that he put me through. Even though we had become brothers at one point, I was so angry with him at another point that I had to say goodbye to him. So.
Well, that's the great answer. Well, I won't go into that. But you know, they say, I do a little bit. Like, they say anger is just the whatever emotion to fear. And so a lot of times when I'm angry, the first thing I'm thinking is there's nothing I'm afraid of. I'm angry because I'm about to beat your ass. It's the opposite of fear.
Yeah.
Or, I'm angry. And so it will take, that's where I go back and that's where I'm trying to process my thinking. So when I'm really angry about something, it takes me sometimes days to really figure out what that core, where is this coming, like fear, where can fear be based out of this? And every single time, like I said, sometimes it takes 3 days or a couple weeks. And it's mostly talking about it in meetings or with, just people I trust, just venting about it and talking and seeing their insights. That if it'll finally just come to me like, oh, I get it. Okay, it was because I was afraid of this, really. But the anger is like just that wall or that shield that comes right up right away.
Oh yeah,
instinctively.
Yeah. We're back to the
clip.
Subconscious right there. Yeah. The unconscious mind putting you somewhere. I tell you, one of the things I love is you talked about talking to other people, in your group or whatever it might be. One thing that Smart is real big on is write it down.
Yeah.
Write it down. It makes your thoughts clearer. You can contradict yourself a little bit and say, okay, I thought that, but wait a minute. I really look at it this way. And black and white is a beautiful way to see the hard evidence of what
Yes.
you're looking at. We do this a lot. I'm sorry if I'm going all the way
Keep
back
going.
to smart all the time.
I like to break the rules.
But, I talked about the lifestyle balance pie. Mm-hmm. I have saved every lifestyle balance pie that I've done since I started with Smart. And I think it's 9 of them now.
Wow.
9 or 10, something like that. And I can see the first wheel looked like the spokes on a wheel. I mean, it was up and down all the way. It looked like a star.
Yeah.
And as my recovery progressed, it slowly started to round those edges off. Now, I still haven't gotten a circle yet, but I got something to aspire to.
Yes.
But my last one, the only places where it dipped in was finance, because I'm broke. Welcome to the jungle.
Yes.
And employment. Those were the only two. Okay. So now I'm employed, and my finances are getting better. I'm not really doing what I want to do, but I'm employed,
right,
so
right.
I'm in the right direction.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I love that. There's a workbook too, right?
Yes, you can get that on the Smart Recovery site as well. Most facilitators have them at meetings, so if you don't have a chance to get one, and you don't, it's not required.
Right.
You certainly don't need it. Everything that we do as far as lessons, we either have the book that will show it to you if it's an in-person meeting, or handouts, and on the Zoom meetings, of course, you got the whiteboard and you utilize that as well.
Right.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. And you're right. The writing it down thing is there's science that says, like, your brain, when you write stuff down, functions differently than when you're just typing.
Yeah.
You know, it processes it in
Harder
a
to
different
forget.
way. Yes.
Yeah.
So, okay. You did great.
Oh, good.
How was that?
Good.
It's hot this room,
It was
right?
hot.
It was really hot. I was like, I'm miserable. Hurry up. Okay. So, our last... we got more interactions really quickly. Let's see. I can't think my way into new behavior, but I can behave my way into new thinking.
Oh, I like that.
Oh, I like that.
Was that a comment online?
Yeah, that was a comment from Tom.
Well done, whoever that was. That's
Tom.
well
And
done.
he also said, question, is complete abstinence an objective of Smart Recovery? Complete abstinence.
Complete abstinence of any problematic substance or activity. So that may mean some people will come because they've got a gambling addiction. They do not have a problem with the little bit of grass they smoke. So what we're there for is to help you with your addiction. If smoking a little grass now and then is what you do, that's not your addiction.
You're not getting kicked out.
Now, if smoking grass every day and you can't stop is your addiction, then yes, total abstinence from that. It depends on what you're coming there for.
Right.
Some people come for eating disorders. Some people come for alcohol, but they may, again, they might smoke a little, or they might do whatever. But as long as that's not the piece that's causing them trouble, that's not the piece that they can't really walk away from.
Yeah.
Now, if they start to use that in lieu of that substance, well, now you've got another problematic behavior.
Right.
So now you've got to look at complete abstinence of that.
Yes.
So it's really based on each individual. Some people, everything is everything. You're going to have to just get rid of all of it because none of it works for you. But some people just don't have issues. We have seen people with meth addictions who may have an occasional beer. Now, I'm not talking about getting sloppy drunk. I'm talking about they can have that beer. That's not something that draws them back into that particular addiction. So it's really individual. Myself, abstinence. I just stay away from anything that's altering the
17
mind.
years to
Yeah,
figure
there
out.
you go.
I just realized it's kind of like just almost like my personality. I'm just like a 0 to 10 person. I call myself an addict because I'm just addicted to more.
Sure.
I want more of anything that makes me feel good. Even food. And that's the hardest one because guess what?
Tell me about
I can't
it.
just stop eating food.
Right.
So when I notice my change in, my eating behavior, if it's more or if I'm not eating, I have to recognize that right away.
Sure.
Well, now why did I just eat a whole half a pizza to myself? Okay, is it. And kids, come take the rest of the pizza. Quick.
I did tell you the meeting information, right? So you can, get it.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Good.
But yes,
Pizza could be the addiction.
I could find addiction in anything. There was a love addiction problem, like all kinds of things. So, but yes, just mainly that awareness piece and trying to have that intention and utilizing, whatever paths, I can explore.
Absolutely.
And find things that I connect with, because each person has their own path, period. I don't like people that are like, this is the only path and you have to do it thoroughly or it's on you. Like, it's not. And it's this ridiculous. Like, it's insane thinking to me, because like none of us are ever going to follow one niche. It's just impossible.
No. And for me, my DOC was not the pot or that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. That was an income source for me. Mm-hmm. And I enjoyed the culture of that.
Yeah.
Mine was drinking.
Mm-hmm.
My problem is I know personally that if I give in to doing one, it's going to lead to the other. Now, some other people are able to keep that distance. That's fine. And as long as you are working on the addiction, that's what matters. For me, it's a zero-sum game.
Yes.
I don't want to get pulled back in.
Clear-minded, clear-headed at all times.
Exactly.
Period.
Exactly.
So, okay. Let's go. Okay. There's another comment from my Facebook user that says, an old cowboy told me never squat with your spurs on. What, your friend? I don't know. But they get the choice to be anonymous, so I can't see who said that. But now we're going to do the fun part. You ready?
I am.
Okay. So the Facebook memes live, and I've got it down to 8. Okay.
8?
Yes.
Wow.
It's been way more than that sometimes. But
down
guess is
to
like,
8.
Okay, now, Bridge, how many more of these are you going to keep making me do? But you don't have to describe them anymore, because guess what? The listeners can see them if they have their thing up. So, let me think where I put them. Okay. So, going in... Oh, no, I sent them in there. So I'm going to flash them unison with what I have them in order on... I forget. We're live here. I got to stay close to the mic. So here we go. I'm going to pull them up on here that I have them saved. Okay. Number 1. Okay. Here's the first one. So go ahead and read that in chronological order. If you can describe it a little bit, because some users might not have a...
Okay. It is a man with a woman on his back, and he's saying, I'm a turtle.
I'm a turtle.
And then there's a group of costumed animals, and the fox, I believe that's a fox, is saying, oh, and who is that on your back? And he responds, that's Michelle.
That's Michelle. I didn't get it
It took me a second.
It took me longer than
That's
a few minutes.
Michelle.
Michelle, it's stupid. I don't get it. Oh, Michelle.
Yes.
Are you prepared? This is what you're in.
This is beginning to scare me just a little bit, Bridge.
I promise. I approve them so that they're not inappropriate. Like this one, I just immediately. So there's a person looking suspicious, looking up at like something.
Me looking at the supermarket camera after eating a grape.
Do you do that? I still do that. And I look around like,
I am not going to admit to any crimes. Oh, okay, I already have inspirational dissatisfaction. But
well, sometimes my kid is just really crabby, and they see the grapes. I try to avoid it, but they always put them in different sections at different stores, and they'll freak out. So, like, I literally am. And I'm like, if anyone stops me, I'll be like, well, let's just. Can I compensate 5 to 10 grapes my kid and myself just ate? Sorry about that.
You don't think you're going to get cuffed at that point?
No. Okay. Number 3. Oh, so they're a combination of either things I thought that were funny or like inspirational. So
okay.
This is an inspirational one. Just read it out loud.
I am not in recovery to add days to my life. I am in recovery to add life to my days. I like it.
Do you love that?
Yeah.
100%. Okay, day by day. Oh, this was funny. This one I just thought of my friends, my girlfriends. Well, there's a lot of us are single. Read it out loud. I would say this too.
Oh, the first sentence is, I can change him, in quotation marks. And the answer to that is, girl, did he shit his pants?
I can change him. I'll hear that, you know. And a lot of my friends will come to me for, like, relationship advice. Like, I'm not divorced. I'm single. Like, do you really want my advice would be to be single.
That's scary.
Okay. And number 5 is... Oh, this one, alcoholics, I think we got to laugh at ourselves, Steve.
Oh,
okay?
yes.
Okay, this one you can just read.
That candle smells like Fireball. Us non-alcoholics like to call that cinnamon Becky. Okay, that one passed me.
We like to call that cinnamon, Becky. Okay. Oops. Okay. Okay, this one is funny for anyone who anyone who has children or parents or even... Okay. Go ahead and read that.
Me. I could use a good night's sleep. My kids, we don't do that here.
We don't do that here. Ever.
Okay, Bridge, I'm turning the tables on you.
Oh, you got one for me?
Oh yes, I got a
I
meme
love
for
this.
you.
Okay.
Explain that one.
Okay. So, I see the Baby Yoda, but he's not Baby Yoda. I forget what his real name is. I see people around my age mountain climbing. I feel good getting my leg through my underwear without losing balance. It's true. Oh my gosh, my back will start hurting. I'm like, oh, I'm getting old. What is wrong with me? I love that. Oh, I would invite future guests to do that.
There you go. Bring your own memes.
Yes, I'll message my next guest. Hey, and if you got any memes you want to share,
I get a royalty check for that then, right?
Yeah. If there was funds, the gas card's in the mail.
Oh wait, I'm
be
not
a
getting
while.
paid for this?
Well, no conversation except service. It's service.
Nice.
Service to the community. Okay, this one I really loved. My friend John posted this one. Inspirational.
Okay, we've got a cowboy and an older cowboy and a young kid cowboy. A father said to his son, "Be careful where you walk." The son responded, "You be careful. I walk in your footsteps." I like that.
Yeah.
Nice.
Well, and I think like what you shared, you know, in your book, like for me, I think that ultimate rock bottom, or the closest I've come to like my final desperate moment was, you know, I would always seek recovery to save my marriage. I was seeking recovery for the court. I was seeking recovery because of CPS. You know, and at the last end of the days, you know, I'm like, I'm doing this for my kids. I knew that CPS was on everybody was there, and I just knew. And so when I couldn't do it for my kids, I felt like the biggest POS on the planet.
Sure.
Like the worst person. And so when I when I came to that realization, like, and the kids were taken away from me, I did lose them. That was what needed to happen to get that gift of desperation, which I just realized is an acronym for God. Gift of desperation.
Oh, nice.
That's
Look
how
at
I found
you.
that.
Look at you
That's
getting
that.
all
That's my bestie
acronymy.
Sarah pointed that out because I say it a lot.
You're speaking mellifluous.
Yes. and that's what I realized. Okay, that's when I finally made that choice myself.
Right.
You know, so it was a beautiful thing. No, back then I would have been like, "What? That beautiful thing? My ass! I'm miserable and I hate life." F you. Okay, last one. Thank you for your patience. Okay, it's just words.
Do one thing every day that scares you. Come on a podcast.
No, are you scared? Oh, you went on the radio show.
I'm
That's way more
scared.
intense. We're in the
It's
closet. Steve.
Well, that's true, but Muhana was there. I figured he'd do half the talking. I'd only have half a show.
Oh, sure. You got music, like great music.
Got to play
But you
music.
knew
It
that
was
this was going to
awesome.
be an hour mostly you talking.
Yeah, see, that's
You did
that's
well.
nerve-wracking.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. And I really
Absolutely.
appreciate
Thank you for having me, Scott.
taking the time. And I just want you to know where our book club gets the books. Maybe I'll come to you, but I like to get my books signed.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
so that's the
I'll
thing.
sign your digital copy.
Yeah. I'll have to figure that out. I have one of these little like weird pen things. I never use it. Fancy. But okay, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you,
Get
Bridge.
the book, Inspirational Dissatisfaction. I know I got the Kindle version on Amazon. I hear Barnes & Noble. Do you want to let listeners know where else they can get it? Or?
Sure, you can get it at several places. If you do go to Amazon and you're looking for the book, don't just put in Inspirational Dissatisfaction, because you will get everything that's about inspiration and everything that's about dissatisfaction.
This is facts.
Add the word book.
Book.
Then they'll know it's the book. But if you go to Barnes & Noble, just Inspirational Dissatisfaction will pull it up.
You can read all the reviews.
Yep.
And it's worth it. I have the Kindle, but I just like reading in bed, and just with the it doesn't work. So I'm waiting for the book club. Okay. Well, everybody, I hope you had a great weekend. Thank you for joining us, and I hope you all have a great week. And I will check in with you next week. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Check this out. I got like some cool inspirational music I like to play at the end here. Hold on. It's pretty dope.